an abundance of overpowered main characters in anime. Yes, granted, it is all too satisfying with this character that we are supposed to relate to when he completely overpowers and demolishes his adversaries. Yes, the satisfaction levels are through the roof, but as far as good storytelling goes, overpowered main character is not exactly how you want to sell your story, unless you're one. Now, I find that the overpowered character trope is a bit of a double-edged sword. When done right, you get your super spasmically high-leveled satisfaction moments that you could otherwise only dream of seeing, but on the other hand, it completely can kill a story's momentum. So today, welcome to an overpowered analysis of main characters that suffer from this tragic path of being so broken they destroy everyone that dares oppose them. Oh, the tragedy. Hashtag relatable. Why sometimes, even though a character is ridiculously overpowered, they still don't feel broken to the viewers. You don't feel like you're just watching a character steamroll all their opponents with no adversary to their laid-back lifestyles, even though in actuality, the character fundamentally does steamroll all their opponents and does have a relatively laid-back lifestyle. I'm going to be primarily focusing on Mob from Mob Psycho 100 and Saitama from One Punch Man, for this video being that they both embody very much of what I'm trying to get at. Now, this isn't necessarily a technique to bypass the downsides of being overpowered for whatever reason. This video is kindly sponsored by Hustle Castle. Hustle Castle's an RPG for iOS and Android where the player becomes the owner of his own castle, Overlord style. You are the Eindulgaun of the game, except it's colorful with Family Guy-esque characters and humor. As the lord of your castle, you have to worry about expanding your castle, attack fortresses of other players, defeat their troops, and take their resources, pillaging them to upgrade your own castle. Of course, you can develop characters of different classes, like archers, tanks, mages, cooks, carpenters, alchemists, and of course, you can upgrade their skills. It also has a fascinating storyline, fighting against the forces of the undead to defeat the Abyss Lord. Truly a ton of fun, and one of my most lighthearted experiences in an MMORPG. Download Hustle Castle via my links below in the description, enter your nickname, and get a special bonus for new players, being 250 diamonds and 3,500 gold. Thanks again for sponsoring the video, and on with the video. As far as most overpowered characters that I would say are done right, I feel like the reason why they're done right is not even similar to what we're seeing here. When I'm introduced to quote-unquote well-written overpowered characters, they're usually well-written because, well, it turned out they weren't that overpowered. Meliodas from Seven Deadly Sins seemed overpowered in the beginning, but in actuality, he wasn't. Like we saw later on, it was just establishing his personality and quirkiness in the beginning. Oh, Kirito? Well, he's actually probably the greatest written character of all time. You thought he was overpowered because he could use two swords, a move that's broken, being that no one else in the game could do it, but the game chose him to do it because he has the best reflexes, so why not give the guy with the best reflexes the best power as well? Well, that's not that broken, because when he fights the guy that created the game, that guy's actually stronger than him. Oh, you think him coming back from the dead was broken and hacks? Well, yeah, you're right. That's why he was a suckily written, overpowered protagonist. But my point is, trying to write an overpowered main character directly by saying, well, actually, he's not really overpowered, is a cute writing gimmick to get out of certain situations, but it doesn't really make a masterpiece. Something that I like doing in my videos is trying to look at things from a perspective that the story is trying to point out. Looking at the themes of the series themselves and see what they are trying to say. And in this case, to define overpowered, we also have to define what power is. In Seven Deadly Sins, or Sword Art Online, the examples I've brought up, power is output damage. And being that Kirito's leveling up trying to become the strongest to defeat the bosses, that makes him overpowered. Similarly with Meliodas, even though his personal training arc to unlock his 100% power up fits with his themes, and that's why I would say Meliodas is an overpowered character written correctly, and Kirito is, well, let's just move on. But Mob Psycho and One Punch Man both do a very different job as far as trying to pin down what power is. Mob's goal is not to become the strongest psychic of all time and also part-time pirate king. And Saitama's goal is not to become the #1 hero of all time and beacon of hope for the entire world of my hero, Narutamia. No, these are not the goals of the aforementioned characters. Mob wants to live an absolutely normal life, and he wants wants the girl that he likes to like him back, and Saitama wants to fight an opponent that he can actually fight at full power. Being that the respective goals of these characters are not purely in amassing strength, it gives an entirely different shift in perspective of what the meaning of being overpowered is. The purpose of One Punch Man isn't to see, oh my god, will Saitama actually defeat Crabman? I don't know, my money's on Crabman. He does look like he has a pretty hard shell. And then Saitama just like steps out of the blue and beats him, much to everyone's surprise. That's really not what the story of One Punch Man's about. So One Punch Man easily overpowering all of these opponents isn't gonna keep us in awe of, wow, One Punch Man surpassed all of our expectations. And since I'm gonna do an entire video on Saitama, which is going to be a very long video, I'm gonna leave out my personal take on his psychology and why I really love One Punch Man. But in Mob Psycho 100, I think it's pretty clear that Mob is fighting against himself more than he's fighting against any opponent. The hardcore awesome fight scenes and the actual struggles that Mob has to go through as far as fighting enemies aren't nearly as important to Mob as the daily ones. Jogging with the Body Improvement Club, trying to place top 10 in a marathon to impress a girl, hanging out with his friends when he was always socially awkward. These are the little details in Mob's life that actually matter to him. They're what he's striving to accomplish. Him beating an apparition or two that even the greatest psychic in all the world could not defeat means nothing to him. So being that that's the case, him overpowering an opponent isn't bad writing, because that opponent is not Mob's thematic adversary. In a series like Sword Art Online or Seven Deadly Sins that I'm using as my benchmarks for overpowered main characters, even though one I think is done well and the other is done, well, Mother's Basement pretty much beat that horse out of existence. And as Thanos said in Lord of the Rings, beat your meat, not dead horses. But the point is, being that their personal journeys are to defeat their enemies, there comes the issue of being overpowered. Kirito's purpose is to defeat his opponents, and so is Meliodas'. Accomplishing their goals are directly linked to them becoming stronger than their opponents. Now, this is not the case in One Punch Man nor in Mob Psycho. For Mob, fighting these crazy, powerful, evil spirits and enemy psychics is all just a distraction for what he really wants to be doing. Fapping. Truly an inspiration does all. And it's also on the contrary. Since Mob has his own personal thematic adversary, being himself and his public image, how he himself wants to become a more popular guy. He wants to be better at hanging out with his friends and having a normal life. The more overpowered he becomes in regards to exercising spirits, the further and further removed he gets from being that normal person he wants. His thematic weakness is his physical strength. So, looking at things under a slightly different lens, that lends you a different perspective of how to see each character, answers almost every thematic quandary you may encounter. The more and more Mob strives to be a normal human being, the harder he's dragged away from that. His most impactful battles weren't based on physical strength alone. In episode 5 and 6, he was up against an enemy psychic that died and kind of became spirit-like and embodied this girl, so Mob went into this girl's mind to try to kick out the psychic guy. Not the point. This psychic was incredibly powerful, potentially even stronger than Mob, but none of that really matters. What that psychic guy did was he made Mob undergo his very own life, how it would all be if he had no psychic powers. Because if Mob had no psychic powers, he would have never met Reagan. Reagan would have never helped him blend into society. Even though Reagan used him for his own personal benefits, Mob gained out of this relationship tremendously. Mob would have gotten bullied, and Mob was living under a false reality of himself without powers, and look, he still sucks. It's not his powers that make him an unpopular monster. He personally is just fated to be bullied. No use blaming anything on his powers or any other burden he has to bear. It's him himself that's the issue. So this fight of Mob's was incredible. Not because the enemy psychic had power equivalent to his own, but it made Mob come to realizations about himself and the value he holds of his friends. He snaps himself out of it because Dimple came to save him. Dimple, this stupid spirit thing that Mob nearly killed at one point, that's now basically their mascot floating around. Yes, it looks like a floating ball of snot, but it's a lovable floating ball of snot. And Mob kicks himself for wishing he could have had a normal life without powers, and he decides no, he's gonna make do with what he has. That is Mob's incredible struggle in this fight. It's not the physical, using psychic powers to pick up buildings and throwing them at each other. None of that matters. That is all a distraction to the challenges Mob is facing. It doesn't matter how overpowered Mob is in regards to his opponents. And it doesn't matter how overpowered Saitama is in regards to his opponents. If the thematic purpose isn't to somehow be stronger than that crazy powerful opponent, and oh, that was done with ease, that's dumb. Since that's not the greater purpose of either narrative, being overpowered is no longer a hindrance to said narrative. Take another one of Mob's recent fights, for example. You had this enemy psychic guy who made his muscles super muscly, and he was really powerful. Now, Mob was unconscious at the time, so this guy was just overpowering everyone. He was about to wipe out Mob's unconscious body, and then the Body Improvement Club stepped in to save him. The Body Improvement Club, in case you did not know, is a group that Mob joined to help him work out and become a more healthy, likable fellow. But their friendship became something of real value to everyone, and they stepped up to defend Mob even though they had no chance against their opponent. They were being thrown around, bloodied up, and despite this, their spirit did not break. They fought back with everything they had, and Mob eventually woke up and one-shotted the opponent by just picking up a finger. It was no challenge to him whatsoever. Wow, overpowered. This is lame. He's broken. It's stupid. No, what mattered about this fight is Mob overcame a different hurdle. Mob actually became close enough friends with these guys that they were putting their lives on the line to defend him. That is the emotional battle that Mob won right here. Him physically being stronger than this psychic muscle guy means nothing to the thematic importance of this scene. And that's why an overpowered, broken character can not have any of the drawbacks of feeling overpowered whatsoever. Now, Mob Psycho and One Punch Man, for funnily enough similar reasons, that the focus is not on the big fat fight scenes that are going on in front of our eyes, but on the psyche of the actual characters, it makes these two anime some of my favorite of all time. One Punch Man's in my top 10 and Mob Psycho's in my top 20. And you'll get your Saitama analysis. You'll see why Saitama is one of my favorite anime characters ever. So I'm really glad I got to get the chance to do this video. I wanted to talk about how Saitama and Mob are both overpowered done right for a while now, and I also wanted to tease my upcoming Saitama video. Feel free to subscribe if you're interested. Interestingly enough, one of the main reasons that pushed me over the edge to actually make this video, even though I didn't do OP analyses in a while, and I kind of want to get back into it, it's because the idea of looking at things in a different perspective and it kind of changes the entire worldview is something I've been wanting to say for a while. Nothing should be taken at face value, ever, until it's seen from all perspectives. I mean, right here, try to pitch a story. It's about a superhero trying to become a strong superhero, and he's so strong he automatically defeats all of his opponents with one shot. None of them are even a challenge to him. I have a feeling that idea would not go over well. But when you're looking at it from the perspective of Saitama's scarred psychological state, at the fact that he cannot find anything to quench his thirst for a challenge. Or Mob, you have a story about a psychic kid who's such a powerful psychic he can defeat any opponent with ease by just snapping his fingers. They are destroyed. Again, that gives the air of a really shittily written story, no offense. But from the perspective of the fact that despite this monumental power that he possesses, and even though he destroys all of his opponents nearly instantaneously, his adversary is trying to live normally in a normal life, having normal friends and normal relationships. The perspective matters so much more than the basic facts, and it doesn't apply to only Mob Psycho and One Punch Man, and it doesn't only apply to anime or other media. It applies to everything in life. The perspective is paramount. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you did enjoy this video. Please leave a like if you did, and subscribe for future anime analysis or satire content. Link in the description. To my Twitter, feel free to follow me there. To my merch, feel free to pick some up. And to my Patreon. All patrons are invited to the Discord server, where we make fun of me. I also especially wanted to thank King Beat My Meat, David Knoll, Negus Nogus, Burning Bush, Sage of Snake, Wilson Fletcher, Team Sparky65, The Unknown Otaku, Lazy Ronin, Girthy Worm Jim, Allison Stricker, The Wolf of Guard, JD Fincher, Cosine Pitch Shifters, Laser, The Ethan, Frisky Dingo, White Noise, Florida Man, Michael Hensley, Mitchell Garnett, Alex Lund, Miriam Ramirez, Q, Praise Lord Dugirugameshu, Billy Thompson, Make Lean Legal, JJ Slabrams, The Night Bright, Sergeant Malarkey, LJ, Kaiser Ruanar, Crazy Beats, Divine Reigns, Taya Kui, Skylar Legg, Karma, and TM Philly. I also wanted to thank the Lord Twiggerank, Meezy Jeezy, Anthony Booth, Noctris, Cream My Pancake, Alvaro D. Banuelos, Prela Rari, MD, Adria Pica, Everest, Buried Minotaur, Emperor Misha, and Kyle the Warrior. Thanks to the God Usopp Rank Dark Element Eduardo Flores, Rogue Robot Studios, Pooh Zerker, Dorthrogamis, Muafak Necro, Sunny Parks. Thanks Shane Harden for having Ashirama cells. Thanks Gremlin and Mitochondria for having a bigger dick than Gremlin. And thanks to the man, the myth, the legend, Steve. Thank you all so much for pledging. Link in the description to my Patreon. And thank you all so much for watching until this point. I greatly appreciate it. And again, thanks Hustle Castle for sponsoring the video. Link in the description. Definitely go check it out. Let me know if you enjoyed this video in the comments. I'm curious to hear your feedback because this was a little different than my recent content. Also, remember to stay weird, fam.